Okay, we're on whenever you're ready to.
Okay. I'd like to call to order the planning commission meeting of December 9th, 2025. Is that how I do that?
Uh-huh.
Roll call.
Oh, I'd ask you for the roll call.
Yeah.
Okay.
Okay. David Sully,
Here.
Matthew Gowerty,
Here.
Gary Lillard,
Here.
and Liberty Avila and Max Koltev are absent excused.
Next is there any changes to the additions or changes to the agenda?
There's not.
Okay. And then, let's see,
Entertain a motion on the minutes.
that's the consent agenda, motion on the minutes of the last meeting. And we get a chance to look that over. Wasn't a whole lot there.
Oh yeah, that's a good short meeting.
Yeah.
Yeah, look good.
I'll second.
You're gonna move?
Yeah, or he's.
Oh, okay.
Yeah, he said him. Or I thought you said you were good.
That's fine.
Okay.
Okay.
So-
Same thing, I guess.
It's in the, right in the middle.
No, I mean for Zoom, like people that are watching it on YouTube.
They're seeing everything that's on
Oh,
the
they're
owl.
just watching it, they don't show up like on this.
No, they're not actually logged in and participating.
I get it. They can see it, okay.
And the next is
Public comments.
public comments on anything in particular? Is there-
Yeah, anything that's not on the
Is there
agenda.
anybody here that wanted to speak on something not on the agenda? Okay, that's nobody, right?
Right.
I gotta move this thing along and throw I'm wording here. So new business.
Yep.
No new business.
Then you could jump to the script and
That is agenda item 6A.
yeah,
Is that what we're talking about?
yeah, yeah. And then there's a script
So
that's
this is- Oh, I see. Open the public hearing and ask for the rules of order for this public hearing to be read in their entirety.
Ready?
Yeah.
The Planning Commission will conduct one quasi-judicial public hearing tonight to consider a subdivision and variance permit, file number 02-SUB-25 and 04-VAR-25, applicant Clint Troyer. The hearing will proceed as follows. The chairperson will request a staff report, which includes applicable criteria and standards for the issue under consideration in the application. As part of the staff report, the applicant may have the opportunity to address the commission prior to public testimony. The chairperson will then ask for public testimony relating to the application. The chairperson may state a time limit for testimony. If no time limit is announced, testimony will be limited to 3 minutes. All testimony must be directed toward the applicable criteria. Oregon land use law requires that all issues raised by a participant during the hearing must be sufficiently clear and specific to allow the hearing body and other parties an opportunity to respond to those issues. Failure to raise the issues during the hearing may invalidate a future appeal. The order of testimony this evening will begin with that of proponents, those in favor, followed by opponents, those opposed, and ending with those neutral. An opportunity will be provided to parties, proponents first, then opponents, to clarify any issues or raised or to rebut testimony. If additional documents or new evidence is introduced during the hearing, any participant may request a continuation of the hearing. Any participant may request that the hearing record be kept open for 7 days to submit additional written evidence or testimony for the purpose of responding to new evidence. Unless waived, the applicant has 7 days to submit a written response. The proceedings are being electronically recorded to be converted to written minutes. When testifying, please step to the podium and state your name. Members of the Planning Commission may ask questions of the staff or hearing participants, if present, at any time. The chairperson will then close the hearing or continue the hearing at a specified time and place. All decisions must be based on findings of fact from the staff report or evidence and testimony received which relate to the criteria of the land use decision. A commissioner must declare any ex parte or pre-hearing contact, including the person's name and the nature of the discussion, as well as any site visitations to the area in question. Commissioners should declare any personal or financial interest in this matter and may disqualify themselves from participation in this hearing. Does any commissioner wish to make a declaration?
I will say that, and maybe this is appropriate, I talked to the city forester, Teresa Gustafson,
Mhm.
about, space for planting trees.
And I'll address that in my staff report too,
Right.
so.
Does anyone in the audience wish to challenge the right of any commissioner to hear this matter? And let the record show there are none.
Okay. Staff report time?
Yeah, so I'm going to give you kind of the executive summary of what's in your packet, and then if you have questions, we can dive into specific sections if needed. But the page I have up on the screen is the second page or third page in the staff report. This is a 13-lot subdivision. It's the second phase of the Ridge subdivision, so it sits just immediately uphill to the south. And it is designed with a 60-foot wide right-of-way that will match the design and construction of the existing ridge, so it'll appear and function the same. In addition to this, city code requires that we plan for connectivity with adjoining properties. And initially, we were looking at extending a roadway out to the east to connect into Bonneville Lane as an emergency access, but ran into some challenges with property owners willing to grant easements and access for that purpose. And the property to the south is heavily encumbered by wetlands, and it's just physically not possible to put a road through that property that would meet city standards. So for connectivity, this project proposes two stubbed roads to the property to the west that would connect. Ultimately, it would extend even further west and tie into 2nd Street at some point. And we already have a stub or a right-of-way on one of the properties further west that would align with the south stub that's proposed in this development. Let me scroll down to the next map that I have in here for that's highlighted. So the highlighted red area is the area that's proposed for street dedication. The stubs that extend out west of Ridge Drive would only have enough improvement to provide a turnaround, but not stub all the way to the property line. The right-of-ways will be dedicated for future connection when property to the west looks to develop. Then they can pay for that extension, but otherwise for this project, it's really a matter of creating block segments and emergency service turnaround locations. Water and sewer and the stormwater for this development is intended to be engineered and constructed by the City Public Works Department. And the road surface, curbs and sidewalks, those would be privately done after Public Works is done by the developer. To get to the street tree question that you asked for, street trees are required by city code, and it'd be something similar to probably what the first phase of the Ridge subdivision has. But that is something the developer will be asked to put together a plan or coordinate a plan with the city urban forestry prior to final plat, and then that plan then gets submitted and accepted as part of the plat. And then the developer has two options for planting street trees. The first option is they could just plant them and try to manage and maintain them, keep them watered until the lot's selling and developed. Or the second option, which the city recommends, is the urban forestry department with the first phase, and they've done this on a couple developments now, is where the developer can essentially post a bond in the form of essentially writing a check to the urban forestry program to pay for those trees. And then the urban forestry program will take on the responsibility of working with each property owner as lots sell and develop, help them select a tree through the urban forestry program and get that tree installed. So that's the recommended option, because then that way you don't have trees that potentially may not survive if they're not getting watered or maintained. So
there's gonna be another kind of bite at the apple here down the road that we're talking.
yes, and so it'll go to city council, so it won't come to the planning commission. The final plat only goes to the city council. But as part of that request going to city council, the developer will address the street tree piece as kind of a component of that submittal. And so, anyway, so that's kind of a kick the can down the road, but you're welcome to have some conversation on that if you want. I just don't know if a lot of thought's been put into it yet.
Should I wait for commission discussion?
Yeah,
Okay.
yeah. And then with this request, there's 3 variances. There's a variance on the density standard. This is currently in a low-density residential zone that requires 4 units per acre. And the applicant is looking to reduce that density to something that's consistent with the existing Ridge subdivision as well as the properties that are around that. And part of that is due to topography, and part of it is due to having to work around the wetlands that are kind of in the southwest boundary of this property that they've avoided. And then there's a huge power line easement that is across the northern portion. And so they're asking for a density reduction to 2 units per acre, which is consistent with that area. And then the other one is a block length requirement. This design actually just barely does not meet that requirement. The city standard requires 500-foot maximum block lengths, and this one scales out to roughly 514-ish feet. And so it just missed it, but anyway, that's in here. And then the last one, which is the most important one, is a variance from the cul-de-sac standard. Dead-end streets are required to terminate at a cul-de-sac that has a diameter of 100 feet, and that's just physically not possible and result in lots that would meet city standards and be consistent with the development. And the applicant, as well as avoid the wetland, and the applicant has coordinated with the fire department for an alternative turnaround, which would be a hammerhead at that south boundary, and kind of a Y-shaped turnaround. And ultimately, when that road extends to the west, then it wouldn't really be considered a dead end at that point. But in the interim, anyway, it would be a Y-shaped turnaround that is designed and sized, coordinates with the fire department to support fire trucks. So that's kind of the summary. There's conditions of approval added in the end, and I'll just give you a quick summary. There's one for putting together a dust control plan, which is really having a water truck on site during the dry season. Public Works had some comments on engineering related to, these are after the preliminary plat would be approved, would be for the developer to coordinate with Public Works on the how the street surface is going to be engineered, who's going to do the inspections, which usually Public Works does those. But that would be coordinated between this decision and actual construction. The engineering of water, sewer, and stormwater is going to be done by Public Works, but they asked for a condition in there. So if the applicant chooses to do that work privately, that they would be on the hook for that. Something for your conversation, it's not in this proposal, but there's a condition for streetlights. The existing phase 1 subdivision has street lighting at a uniform spacing. It's not reflected in this plan, so that's included as a condition of approval. So that's something that you and the applicant can discuss if that condition was to be removed. For design and construction of driveway approaches, that's typically done post-construction when somebody comes in and gets a building permit and they build and they actually know where they want their driveway. But sometimes as part of forming the curbs and sidewalks, the developer kind of pre-locates curbs and sidewalks. And so anyway, so the condition you see there is just identifying that Public Works has a design standard for what that looks like, and that needs to be followed. The street tree planting plan is on there as a condition. The right-of-way dedication, there's a section that's north of Bonneville Lane that's kind of no man's land. It's under the power lines, and that was decided to be dedicated as part of the public right-of-way. It could be used for stormwater or just some open space next to the right-of-way. Then installation of street signage prior to completion, and adding a clustered mailbox station, which is a post office requirement for mail service, prior to final completion. So that's the list of conditions that are on there. Most of those are city code things, and they're only listed as conditions as just kind of a reminder to kind of reinforce the requirement. They're not new things. But that's the summary of the application. Do you have any questions of me on code related?
I presume Bonneville Power is okay with the use of their easement to cross with the street.
They have not commented, but they typically are okay with the use of that right of way as long as you're, not within 50 feet of a structure. And there's no structures within this dedicated section. So there's really no impact to Bonneville Power. Historically, they've supported driveways and roadways in the vicinity of the power lines just because it gives them good access. But we don't have any comments from Bonneville Power on this.
I'm not totally understanding the conditions, call them conditions of approval.
Yes.
So are they on, I don't see them in here.
Yeah, they're on the last page of the staff report. I'll tell you what page they're on. Oh, I didn't see them printed here. They would be on page 22.
Which I don't actually have.
Yeah, I don't either.
Yeah, it didn't print front to back.
Oh,
Darn it. I
and-
think we've got it
Yeah,
up here.
as long as we can see it.
Oh, it's 22 of the PDF, but let me see where we're at here. That's 13. There's 8, 9. So anyway, so they start here, and so the comments in blue are ones that were added by Public Works since I did the staff report. But so if you want to, we can take some time to let you
What?
read these.
Conditions of approval means that
So-
we are conditioning this
This development,
to include so that they have
The-
to do this stuff.
yes. Yeah, so there's elements in the submittal that do not fully address some of the requirements. They're assumed, but so the conditions of approval just kind of catch those areas that were either overlooked or kind of missed in the design phase, or they're requirements that come after. And in many of these cases, they're requirements that the developer has a responsibility to coordinate after they get your decision. And so these are just kind of there to remind the developer that these steps are still needed, that are yet to come.
Any concerns about traffic?
There is not. So the only, I haven't received any comments from Public Works or from any neighborhood residents about traffic, but, and I think if they were asking for the full density of 4 units per acre, I think we would have generated, some more comments. But that was partly where the conversation started with this project as a secondary exit off of out of this development to the east through Bonneville Lane. And so that we started that conversation, and the applicant, I don't know how many months, worked with the neighboring property owner, even developed a plan and even had lawyers draw stuff up, and everything was agreed to, and then they bailed out at the last minute. And so that easterly connection was removed from the plan. And that's where the westerly connections were added. The fire department has reviewed that, and from a fire code standpoint, the threshold, I think, is 30 dwelling units, triggers that need for a secondary access. And this project with the phase 1 of the Ridge subdivision, I want to say it's like 28 dwelling units. It's just below that threshold that needs an alternative exit. So with that, it's a legit request for a dead end street. It's longer than desired, but it's valid.
Yeah, if I was down here, one of these further along the road, and there was something that happened that you couldn't get out of that. I think that's worth some consideration.
It is, and that was a lot of the conversation with the fire department and with the neighboring property owner. And so, but yeah, the 30 units is the threshold. So that's why you don't see a secondary access road proposed for construction.
So I think it was haven't seen this, but it might be on one of the pages. For one of the variances, I think it was talking about the geological hazard element.
Uh-huh.
Can you just like elaborate on that and how that plays a role in the variances?
Yeah, so the geologic hazard zone is really, it's partially related to the variance on topography just because you need larger lots to accommodate development. I'm going to see if I don't know if I have a map in this piece, but the geologic hazard zone essentially starts, fairly high up on 12th Street. It runs all the way down past Geckler, past the school district, and ends, somewhere around Adams and Terrace, kind of in that northwest corner of town. And all that zone it's an area that has soil types that, I'm not a geologist, but they're colluvial soil types that are kind of a looser soil, and they tend to be susceptible to erosion and failure. And so within that zone, we generally look at as part of construction itself. So that'd be something that the applicant would work with Public Works on if there's a concern, but they'll deal with an erosion control plan and figuring out how to make sure there's not going to be any significant cuts that we're aware of in this, where like the hospital, where you have to worry about slope failure. So it's really going to be dealing with erosion, and with Public Works dealing with, putting in city storm drains. That'll handle a lot of the storm water that is predicted for this property. But to take it one step further, at the time each one of these lots go to develop and they come in with a building permit, that geologic hazard zone has implications for each property owner. And so then we'll look at how each property itself is dealing with stormwater management. And typically they just design their landscaping around the periphery of the property as bioswale so it can receive water rather than sheet flow and dump it onto a neighbor. So that's how the geologic hazard zone functions. But unless somebody is doing a project similar to the hospital where you're doing significant cuts and huge retaining walls, it generally doesn't become a factor in the development.
What about snow removal, that sort of thing? Is that a city thing or is this a?
Yeah. Well, it's going to be a dedicated public right of way, so it's going to become a city Public Works managed snow program.
Okay. What about that grade on the road? Was it something like 8%?
Yeah, I think I want to say 13 is the maximum that city code allows. And 13 is not desirable for fire trucks. I don't think this project has any 13%, but in the first phase of the ridge, the lower section had, I think it's got one section that is really close to 13, if it's not just slightly over. And they ended up having to do some lower grades, kind of before and after, in order to allow the fire truck to have enough momentum to carry those little humps. But this project is, the topography is not such that we got close to those thresholds.
Okay, some time to request public testimony.
Sure. If you're done with me, then yes.
You guys ready? Okay. What do
You can ask.
Is there anyone here that wanted to provide public testimony on this project? No, sir. Okay. Time for committee discussion then.
These are pretty big lots, aren't they?
They are. Yeah.
Are they providing riding lawnmowers or?
For a date.
Yeah.
Did the first phase get variance for density?
Yeah, the first phase came in with a proposal for, I want to say it was 5 phases, going all the way up to Gilcrest Drive. And so they had a fairly significant variance on density, because that's actually a medium density residential zone that calls for 5 units per acre. And so anyway, that's actually a steeper section of the the total ridge development that was proposed at the time. And
Where's the goat?
Gilchrist is at the top of 12th Street. So if you go, I don't know if my other map, maybe my vicinity map at the beginning gives a kind of, but so if you continue through this development and then you go through the property to the south, Gilchrist is kind of off the map, kind of to the southeast.
Okay, yeah, I think.
And the original Ridge subdivision, I want to say there was 200 and some lots proposed. There was a lot,
What?
and I could be wrong. Maybe I'm thinking there's at least 80 something.
Much bigger than.
But there's so much wetland in the southern portion that was not taken into consideration when that first phase was laid out. That I think in reality, if that wetland was delineated, it would have been considerably lesser density because there's a lot of challenges related to that wetland, and the applicant owns this property as well and has experienced some of those wetland challenges and working with Department of State Lands to deal with that. So that's partly why you probably don't see any of that in this property or in this project. But anyway, but that's also why Public Works and the Fire Department did not push to have the emergency access road punched through the way the original subdivision was designed, is because you just can't get through that wetland in any feasible manner that is cost effective.
What about positioning of the homes on these large lots? Is there some kind of rule, regulation, a covenant that would specify where on the lots they build them, or could they be in various places? Am I making sense?
Yeah, no. That's our CRCs, right?
Excuse me, I'm sorry.
He's asking about where the houses could be positioned within the individual lots and.
Where are they planted?
Yeah.
I don't understand their setbacks that are rules within the building.
Yeah, there's the city stuff,
You
right?
guys have requirements for
Right.
setbacks.
Yeah, are you referring to like the orientation of houses, which way they face, like
Yeah, I mean,
whether?
20,000 lot, I don't know what size houses will be put up there, but I presume.
I know what you're saying.
Okay.
I was thinking okay. The CCNRs will have conditions of size of the houses, and they'll be stick-built houses. Similar to the ones below, will be real similar to the first phase of the ridge.
And there'll be CCRs that cover where they're positioned as well.
Well, I don't think we can tell people where to put their house, but the city has rules on
Yeah.
the setbacks.
Sure.
So many feet from the front,
Right.
so many feet from the side, so many feet from the back. Isn't that
Right.
right, Mike?
Yep.
Yeah,
Okay.
but there'll be homes real similar to the ones built in the first phase.
Sure.
Stick frame, stick built. Yeah. Pretty good size. I also think there'll be, probably extra people have possessions that they'll want to enclose, like RVs, boats, campers.
Right.
But the CCNRs will spell all of that out.
What is CCNR?
The covenants and restrictions of what you can put in a neighborhood.
Okay.
So like below the ridge, the first ridge, if you kind of look at what they've done, that's what the CCNRs are
They-
good with.
They constrain how they can build
Yeah.
houses.
Like probably no manufactured homes,
Mhm.
no manufactured homes up there. A lot of times they'll say you can only have so many square feet on the main level, and not less than. Say they want 1,600 on the main level, and you can go up from there. What's some other things, Mike?
Sometimes you'll have like peak height, so depending on topography, so that you're not blocking somebody's view. So you'll sometimes see building height standards for stuff. You'll see stuff for types of roofing and siding, so that you end up with something that's higher quality.
So they can be more restrictive than the city's going.
Uh-huh.
Yeah.
Yeah, so a lot of times you'll see those kind of things. Sometimes there'll be a standard of what type of fencing is acceptable, so somebody doesn't do something ugly, if they have a flavor they're looking for. So that's a lot of what the CCNRs do, is they create the flavor of the development so that, they're consistent, compatible with each other.
Trees, tall things like that.
Yeah, sometimes those are in there.
Which brings me to my question about trees.
Mhm.
So, and I actually planted city trees with the city, my wife is on the tree board.
Mhm.
And, we planted on the first ridge development, and, I remember the city forester saying those planting strips are 4.5 feet, they're too narrow for a tree. And she recommended, widening. Is there a way to condition that?
I don't know if there's a way to condition it. I mean, I guess that'd be a question to ask, have with the developer. There's two ways to address that.
You guys are developing?
Yeah.
Yeah, so there's two ways to address that. I don't know if it's fair to condition it, but the 60-foot right of way is a specific standard that Public Works hands out and says this is what you will build. And that's what they have. So they have the city adopted design standard. And so then there's options to deviate from that if, you know, if the developer has some challenges with a site or makes a compelling argument, you can eliminate on-street parking. And then you take that parking space and you can allocate it to parkway strips. Historically, we've not necessarily done that, but we've eliminated the on-street parking because the property size constraints wouldn't fit a regular right-of-way, so we had to do something narrower.
I remember that.
And so, but that would be something, I guess, that you could do as a recommendation, is if on-street parking is not something that, you know, the developer wants to do, they want to save on some asphalt cost, is potentially coordinate with Public Works to see about eliminating parking on one side or both sides. And I
So,
mean, they're big enough lots that people may or may not need to park on the street.
right. A couple things that she recommended were, sidewalks on just one side of the street.
Mhm.
So that you have that extra, 5 feet that you could distribute. Or
Scared me.
a couple other recommendations. Just look you up with.
Yeah, and some of those require the planning commission's blessing. And so if you want to include something in your motion to maybe have a recommendation
Uh-huh.
added towards that, that could serve as a, I guess, as a blessing. So if the applicant would like to have that conversation with Public Works to change that right-of-way design,
Would you like to do that?
then at least the option is there.
A 4.5-foot planter strip, you don't think
That's what, she says that's not adequate. She said 8 is best, 6 is minimal. And to get there, so she said, but, you could, off-street parking would be removed, or curbside sidewalks, that's another option. Or sidewalks on just one side of the street. So there's other ways, I guess, they must, City Works just gives you kind of a generic thing, so.
Yeah, and
Yeah.
you know, and that might be a better solution if, you know, if folks want to consider that as doing the curb tight sidewalks. I know Public Works does that in some of our higher traffic areas with some of their projects, but having the sidewalk butt up against the curb and then you put your street trees on the backside of the sidewalk.
Right.
And then they're more functional a lot of times for property owners and how they run irrigation and all of those things.
I like that idea.
And so
Yeah,
that,
I do because, and I'm also, you know, and I don't know, I'm a fan of having no street parking. And I know it's a little different, but downtown here, in front of my girlfriend's house, like in the evening, it's a nightmare.
Yeah.
It's, you can barely get through. There's just cars everywhere. And I'm, I don't know,
Moving
moving
the,
people off the street.
yeah, moving the sidewalk to the curb zone.
I don't see a problem with that.
Yeah, you just flip the planter strips now where the sidewalk is, right?
Yeah.
yeah, so that'd be a design if the planning commission supports that, then that could be something you coordinate with Public Works and you know, then you don't have that planter strip. That is probably nice because it's less to maintain out there,
Yeah.
you know.
Absolutely.
Aesthetically, it's nice, but.
Yeah.
Having space for enough of the trees. is nice.
But it seems like a lot of times that strip gets neglected.
Yeah.
all over town.
Yeah.
Or people park on it.
Yeah.
Yeah, so that if the planning commission supports that, that could be a recommendation or something that
I would be in favor of
that you include in your decision, so that when he goes to Public Works and they talk about that design, is to ask for that deviation.
Okay. Can I just do that? Y'all okay with that idea?
Okay with it.
No,
Yeah, it seems okay.
I'm good with that. Yeah. Industrial at all.
So that means the owner can water the trees.
Be a little easier, yeah.
Yeah, running irrigation and everything, I don't have to worry about going under the sidewalk and all that.
So does the sidewalk go in with the development before the houses?
Yes.
Yeah.
What are the other subdivisions being required to do right now, like Trues, do they have to put?
Well, they've got space constraints, and so they got a variance on their design, and they're a private road, so the city doesn't
Railroad?
Yeah, so it's just paved surface with swales on each side for stormwater drainage, but the city doesn't maintain it. Plow. They don't do anything.
I didn't think
It's
they
all
were very
private.
attractive. I wondered how that got through.
Yeah. So that's a private road standard that is generally only available when you don't have the space to create a public street.
Are these lots terraced by any chance, or are they kind of all, okay? I haven't been up there. so-
Yeah, it's, that property, I mean, there is variations in elevation, but it's pretty gradual, you know, but
Are they few
Yeah.
properties?
they are,
They are.
yeah. And that was my whole intent. I wanted to design this for higher end homes. We have a lot of doctors coming into town, that would appreciate the space and the view.
So how do we get that in there?
Well, I made a note, so when you're ready when you guys are all done with your discussion, if you want, then then when you approve it with the conditions, or if you modify anything, we can add this recommendation. I did a recommendation / approval for curb height sidewalks for right-of-way deviation, so I can help you with that when you get to the motion, when you're ready.
So can we scroll down to the it's like we don't have before.
Yeah. Page I'm on 8. Oh, there we go.
Gary. Gary will take them up there if he wants to.
So for the applicants, is there anything on this, of these conditions, is there anything you want to comment on or anything you have issues with?
I don't believe so.
Nope. We're planning to have the city do the utilities, dust controls on our radar, and just general stormwater control during construction. Big deal. And we're gonna get to Public Works and make sure we do the road the way they want. And when it says inspections, that's like compaction inspection?
Yeah.
Density and all that, right?
Yeah. So as part of that, for the city taking control over the street afterwards, when it's all finished, is they'll want to make sure it meets the specifications. And so
Right.
you can coordinate the inspections with Public Works. So either they'll do it, or you'd have an engineer or somebody do it. But Public Works, I think, is able to do that. But you can coordinate that
I
when you
guess
get.
maybe one thing for discussion, I was assuming that everybody wanted street lighting, it was like a requirement almost. But if we can get out of that, we'd obviously prefer that, but what's thoughts on that? Is this the forum to discuss the
I see
street
it.
lighting?
Yeah, I mean, it's a condition of approval, so this would be the time to do it. Otherwise, it sticks.
Right. And it says shall be installed.
Seems to me like it's a good thing and matching up with what's in the
Yeah,
first
no,
phase.
and that was a discussion, yeah, I guess that was my point, was that I was assuming it's, wanted, required, all that, but is there any reason not to? Cause we would assume not because of money, but
Yeah.
of course, there's a lot of things that
Yeah.
you
Is there
have
an
to do.
amount of lighting, like so many feet, or, you know?
I think we
is
said
there a
same
choice?
spacing as before.
Yeah, it'd probably be the same spacing as the lower section of the ridge. And I don't know what caused them to put street lighting in that development. But city code doesn't say anything about you shall have street lighting, but it it has a standard in the subdivisions that you show street lighting where it's going to go in,
All right.
and so it's kind of just generically identified. The city right-of-way design standard. I think we have a right-of-way style of light fixture that we do, but we do have developments that go in without streetlights, and
So how did they end up with streetlights all over town?
probably because historically that's people have asked for them. And so I mean, Public Works still gets requests where people ask for them and they put them in, and so
Is that on the city's tab?
I think it is now. Yeah, in an existing neighborhood. So like when this development goes in. Part of it'll be are the utilities in place where you could add a street light, so that'll be part of the conversation or that Public Works would probably have with folks if a street light was requested. But generally when we have a subdivision that's already established and there's an extension of it or one that's going in next door to it that ties into it, is you just match what exists in the existing subdivision. In this case, street lights are there, and that's why you see it as a condition of approval. But this development is separated from the lower phase, by the power line. It's a little bit different environment, but so I think it's a fair conversation to have as to whether or not you want to require that for consistency or not.
Kind of depends on what the circumstances are, because some places I don't like the light pollution. Other places, like the bottom of the subdivision where I live, where it connects with a street that's pretty busy, it's dark there.
Mm-hmm.
They really need more light. There was a pedestrian killed there about 3 years ago.
Yeah.
So it just depends on circumstances, I think.
Yeah. So in this case, when you get down to where Ridge meets B Avenue, there's street lighting there.
Yeah.
And so I guess that's a fair conversation for you to have with the applicants as to whether you want to eliminate this condition or not.
So at this point, the sidewalks are probably gonna be different than, I haven't actually been up here, so like in the original Ridge subdivision, and compared to what we're thinking about for the trees, is the sidewalks and the trees are different already. And then then
Oh, that's a good point. How does that transition?
it might be like sort of I don't know if it'd be a jarring or like this is a complete, I don't know, it's also as the developers if you want that.
Yeah, the sidewalk will just have a little sweeping curve right by the power lines, right when you leave the existing development, and you just kind of sweep it over and make it curb tight from that point all the way up.
Yeah, yeah. I guess it's
Yeah.
not.
No,
Make it look fun.
no. Public Works does that in other areas where they have to work around stuff,
Yeah,
and so you'll see areas where the sidewalk moves and goes
yeah.
in unconventional places.
I have a little, I had to dig up an email, but yeah, so traditionally the developer installs the lights and then they're accepted and maintained by the city upon completion, if they're required.
So I guess, I don't wanna speak out of turn, but could we request that condition be removed? But having said that, maybe make so that power is available if streetlights want to be put in later or something. This-
For each individual.
Yeah, if
Yeah, that's
somebody
kinda
wants some,
That's sort of what I was thinking. Is just have it so that, I don't know how it would work in a box or step
Right.
out or something.
yeah, yeah.
And it may not be that complicated because there's going to be transformers and different things up there,
Yeah,
and utilities are going to be buried and accessible. So,
yeah,
so it may not be as complicated as it is in some areas where you've got overhead lines and there may or may not be service in a particular location. But, you know,
Well, I
but,
kind of agree with you, Gary, it depends on conditions.
Mhm.
And this is certainly not like 16th Street.
Right.
So I'd be okay if it was changed into just have availability to install. I mean, at least,
I think that works. I mean, do we need to
I-
say strongly consider?
I think you can move it to a recommendation, say we recommend streetlights, or else I would just delete it altogether and just not worry about it, because that'll be something Public Works will work on when they deal with the engineering of the street design and infrastructure.
Might have some homeowners who would like them.
sure.
Yeah, and so I would hope that's something Public Works will take into consideration as they're dealing with the engineering, that they're at least preparing for the eventuality that somebody might ask for one.
So how do we make sure that Public Works does that?
I think you can just put it in as a recommendation.
Okay,
I'm just not aware of really any conflicts. That's just something that,
I just don't know, I'm not
Yeah.
dealt with it, so I don't know. But rather than saying it would be nice if they would consider it.
Yeah.
Recommendation's good.
Or was there anything else for you all in terms of the conditions? I don't know if you have them all up there for those.
not on this list, but, so that was driveway approaches are pretty standard. Street tree plan. It just deals with the Bonneville Lane dedication.
So look at that lower.
Street signage and mailbox. So the rest of these are just standard ones.
On
So,
the Y,
down here.
so there's where it's going to the west, there's a line, is that the end of the paving?
Yeah, the paving would end right here.
Right, okay. And the fire department is okay with that as a turnaround?
Yeah. Yeah, and in fact, this one here doesn't have a line just because I did some highlighting, but it would likely end right in here as well.
Okay.
Where is that clustered mailbox located?
The clustered mailbox is up in this intersection, this north intersection by the power lines.
That's a U.S. Postal Service thing, isn't it?
Uh-huh. Yeah, we have the requirement in our code because they've switched to clustered mailboxes. They don't do house-to-house delivery anymore, at least not in new developments. And so,
Price you gotta pay. Keep scrolling down for me if you would.
okay.
Oh, that's it.
Yeah, that's the end. So 8 and 9. So,
Okay.
and those are just standard kind of, they're in the code, but they're just more reminders.
So the meat of this really is the three variances, is that right?
Uh-huh.
We had enough discussion on
I think they've seen met all the criteria.
that? I don't know.
Yeah.
So would it be timely for me to entertain a motion?
Did you have a particular way we need to amend that? or-
Well, you could, if you wanted to, you can just approve it as presented in the staff report with the amendment that condition 4 for street lighting is moved to a recommendation. And then add a planning commission recommendation and approval for right-of-way deviation for curb-tight sidewalks. And you could just say, I move that. I move what he said, you know, if you want to just make it easy, but
That's something I can move, even though I can entertain it?
sure.
Okay. I move that the finding of fact conclusion set forth in the decision order be adopted or amended,
Yeah, amended.
and the proposed subdivision of variances be approved.
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Okay,
Okay.
good, you're done. You're done.
Thank you.
Yeah, so your next step is to go visit with Public Works and start getting the engineering figured out. And
There any field hearing or anything? Nobody got up there.
only,
I think Barney did.
yeah, unless Barney wants to, yeah, Barney didn't speak, but I mean, right now, the only person with standing to appeal are yourselves because nobody participated in the process. So unless you want to appeal your approval. So,
I'm going out.
but no, so the next, Clint, just so you know, for process anyway, David asked if the council could, throw a wrench in the process. But so the way the process works now that you have the approval, is you coordinate with Public Works and arrange just to build everything. And once it's built, and you'll then ask for final plat approval, which that goes to City Council. And the City Council's authority is really limited to accepting the street dedications. And so they can't overturn anything, ask for additional requirements or any of those kind of things. And so unless there's something that you don't do, the City Council essentially is going through the motions, and it's just kind of rubber stamping an approval on the final plat. So they're just confirming that you built what you said you're going to build and what you're approved to, and then they approve it. And then after that, it goes to the county commissioners. I think state law requires they sign on the plat for the subdivision platting and the street dedication, and then it gets recorded. And that's kind of just a formality, but it's a pretty easy process.
Okay, awesome. Thank you guys, appreciate it.
Okay, yeah, thanks everyone. Look
Good,
forward to
thank
seeing
you.
Yeah.
Now, there's no old business, I take it.
No old business.
Any city planner comments?
The only thing that I have to share is we have a meeting scheduled in January for a minor petition that has a variance on lot size or dimensions. So that should be I'm thinking it's only one item, so it shouldn't be too complicated. And then in February, we'll have one application for sure, which is the city's application for code amendments on adopting all of our new residential zone standards. So we had the work session on that last summer sometime. Not everybody made it, but we had a work session on housing code changes. And so,
Habitat.
yeah, and then I have an application potentially coming in for Habitat for Humanity.
For a new home you're building?
Well, it's actually for kind of a subdivision. So anyway, they haven't, it's half prepared anyway, as they've been just kind of working over months on putting stuff together. But I don't know where they're at on how complete they are, if they're going to meet the deadline. But I'm anticipating they're going to get that submitted in time for February. Otherwise, that might be March. But anyway, nothing, too complicated, coming up on the agenda. But February has the potential to be a pretty full one if we have the code amendments and a subdivision. So it just may be a little longer because of content, but not necessarily being complicated.
I'll study up on running meetings.
Yeah. Well, just for preparation in January, collectively, whoever's here will be voting in a new chair.
Oh, yeah.
So anyway, new chair and vice chair. So that's all I've got.
Comments?